Hello and welcome to day 3 of the Meeting Tech Mastery workshop. And today we're going to be talking all about presentations. So before we do that, though, first of all, hello to everyone in the chat. Great to see some familiar faces back again. I'm glad I haven't bored you too much over the last couple of days. Let's start off with, though, by a quick introduction. My name is Alec Johnson, for those that don't know me, and I'm over here from my channel Take One Tech, where I cover all of this kind of stuff in great detail. But throughout this week, in collaboration with Vivo Meetings, trying to help folks just level up their online presence in their online meetings, to level up their audio, their video, and their presentations. And so let's just take a quick look at the week ahead, or what's remaining of it, and what we've covered so far as well. So day 1, we talked all about video and lighting. Day 2 was about audio. Today, as I say, we'll be talking about presentations. I'll go into more detail in a moment on that. Tomorrow, then, we're going to be talking specifically about the Vivo Meetings platform itself. So if you are completely new to Vivo Meetings, this should help you get your bearings a little bit. If you are an existing user, then I shall be covering some of the new features and functionality that has recently been added in. So still something for everyone in that session. Then on Friday, we're going to be talking about live production and how you can use live production software or hardware to really just add some secret sauce to your online meetings. And incidentally, everything that I'm doing here with these graphics coming on and off screen is all just happening with the touch of a few little buttons at my fingertips. And you can take all of this kind of production quality into your Vivo Meetings, or indeed any meeting platform as well. Then on day 6, because yes, although we wrap up on Friday, we're back again on Monday, but that's not going to be here on YouTube. That's actually going to be a private closed session on a Vivo meeting, so we can come and actually see each other face to face rather than just me here talking and everyone in the chat. So do go ahead, if you haven't already, and register for this event, because, as I say, although this is obviously all here, and these replays of these live sessions will be here continuously on YouTube as well. But to get access to that session on Monday, you will need to register. And also, I'll be sending out a full document that accompanies the whole series with lots of useful information, some gear guide in there, and some other useful tips and tricks and things like that. So that'll be going out shortly as well. So then on to today, and let's take a look at what we're going to be looking at today. Actually, pretty short agenda, really, just 2 major high-level items. First of all, presentation best practices, and then also I'll be talking about what I like to call an immersive style of presentation, and I'll be explaining what that is. Really, then, the purpose of today is to lay a little bit of groundwork for what is to come on Friday, because there is a massive opportunity to, as I say, using live production software or hardware to really sort of level up your online game and to take things to a completely new level. And ultimately, this is something that's going to be really helpful when you are trying to engage with people online. Ultimately, we're all here, we're all on our online meetings trying to impart some value, whether we are selling something, whether we are educating, whatever the case is, you're in the meeting for some purpose. And so, yeah, for me, live production software, I cannot recommend it highly enough because it can really take things to a whole new level. So what I'm going to be doing today then is, as I say, laying a little bit of groundwork for that. So with that said, let me just go straight into some best practices. And these are sort of general presentation best practices, but I should say they're not all of them because there is a whole new workshop, a whole nother workshop that could be done on presentations and presentation style and things like that. But it is actually a few things that, as I say, are more of a foundation for some things that are going to come a little bit later. So that's why I've picked these few things in a quite selective way. So let's take a look at then some of these best practices. And I'm just going to go through the list, and then I'll go through and do a bit more of a sort of live demo today of some of these things and give you some examples and go and construct some things out. Incidentally, I'll be demoing these things using Keynote, but the same principles apply whether you're using Keynote, PowerPoint, or Google Slides, whatever it's called. So yeah, the same principles will apply to all. But first of all, I'm going to be talking about text usage and when and where to use that, and some little things that to maybe aware of when it comes to having text on screen. Next is content timing, talking about that. And then we'll be talking about infographic use. So if you're introducing complex subject matter, the way that you can potentially use graphics to highlight things, and again, some pitfalls of doing that, and some ways to do it, in my mind, a little bit more effectively. And next up, we'll be looking at animations and talking about the level of animation that you may want to have in your presentations. So with that said, let's first then start off with this whole concept of text usage. And obviously, I've had some bits of text that are coming on screen here, and I am obviously presenting something here. So this has been a one long presentation for the past few days, but I'm always conscious of the amount of text that you put up on the screen. And there are a couple of camps of this. Some people have this idea that you can do presentations with no text whatsoever, and they use imagery and things like that to illustrate points, which is great. And certainly if you are giving a TED talk, then maybe that is the best solution. However, there is a very real need to have text up on screen at times. If you are going through and delivering some sort of content and have some points to make, then certainly having the text up there to not just sort of remind people of those points, but maybe just highlight the salient things, I think can be useful. Obviously, there are other times when you're delivering highly technical content where it is actually critical that you have, the information there for people to see. So having text on screen certainly does have its place, but I think whichever sort of camp you're in, I think everyone can agree that having an overwhelming amount of text on the screen is not going to be the best solution. And this is something that I do still see quite a lot. People will be giving a presentation and then there will be, a busy slide up on the screen that they're trying to talk to. What happens, though, is I think people get distracted by the content that they're looking at, and always what we're trying to do is make sure that, especially in an online meeting scenario, where you're not right there, at the front of a stage or, in a meeting room, front and center. Usually when we're in an online meeting, what happens is as soon as you share your slides, you at best disappear down to, a small little window over on the side, if at all, if they can see you at all, that is. So we have to constantly be conscious about this. And as I say, we'll get into that a little bit more with immersive presentations. But maybe just in the meantime, what I can do is give you a quick little example of the sort of thing that I'm talking about and how maybe we could do this a little bit better. So I'm going to share just a very brief share of a very short slide deck, which is actually something I just created as a demo as part of my keynote masterclass. But I'll just show you this right now. And imagine that you've got a sort of company overview. This is something that I would say would be, more of a sort of brochure really than a presentation. But you still see people who are going through giving a presentation in their meetings, whether it's whether it's information, whatever it happens to be. But you'll get the idea that you've got something that is in this sort of form. So maybe you've got an about our company page with a sort of long description. Maybe you've got something, some further information. You can see though what we've got here in these slides. Although right now you might think, well, they're being presented in quite a nice way, that the information's on screen and I'm on screen, and incidentally this is kind of part of what I'm talking about when I talk about immersive presentations. However, to my mind, there is still a lot too much information on screen. And so it's always better to try to limit the amount of text that you've got on screen if you are presenting. Maybe have something like the formal presentation, if you've got something like that in your company or whatever. That would be maybe something that you send out after the fact, or in accompaniment to the link to the meeting or whatever, so that people have all of that information. But when it comes to the fact of you actually presenting the information, making sure that, as I say, it is minimal text on the screen and you are the one that is actually explaining it. So if I was to want to sort of adjust that presentation accordingly, what I might do is, let's just do a bit of a demo. What I might do is I might take that information. Let me just put this over here where you can see it. What I might do is just sort of duplicate that slide, and then take this information from here, maybe just delete this. What I'll do is for speed, I'm just going to delete all of this here, and just imagine, because we've just got sort of some lorem ipsum text here in any case, rather than those big bullet points there, what I might do is just drag this out, increase the size of the text so it's a lot easier to see on the screen. And then just imagine that these are actually for individual bullet points. And so if I was going to be wanting to go through and sort of present the information that is in this particular slide in the download, then what I would do is I'd be presenting something more like this. One other thing then that is worth mentioning, which it kind of leads into something that I mentioned earlier, which is this idea of content timing. So we want to constantly be aware of when you put anything up on screen. Let me just quickly add in a little animation, and I'm just going to do something. Why not have this move in? Let's say we do that. You want to be constantly aware of, the information that is on screen, because if I was to have this slide up, let's say, and I did just sort of flick straight over to this, then what would happen is immediately, it's a sort of natural thing, people would start reading all of the information that's on the screen. And so not only is it overwhelming because there's sort of too much there, but also it is distracting from the things that the host or that I am saying. So what I would do is I would just add in a little animation, which is what I've just added in just over here, if I get the right screen share. And the way that this then would look would be something more like this. So as I'm talking about our company or whatever it happens to be, as I'm advancing my slides, it's just bringing the bullets in, and I'm the one that's actually introducing this content. And I'm talking about it and making sure that there is nothing up on the screen that shouldn't necessarily be there whilst I'm talking. So in terms of using text, using it sparingly is something that I think is definitely something to take into consideration. That said, there are certain times, specifically in sales. I mean, there are whole sales techniques around having things on the screen, and you've got them there with a specific purpose in mind. For example, you're doing some sort of class or workshop or something like that, or maybe a sales webinar, and you want to have something up there. There's a sort of term for this, burning it into people's minds while they're sitting there looking at it. Maybe it's something that you're going to offer as a discount later. So there are some other tactics and reasons why you might want to have text up on the screen. But the other thing to think about, though, with this is actually just the text size. I mean, obviously, if I go back to that slide again, this is quite large text on the screen to me sitting here. And if I go back to that previous one, that is already, even for me on a larger screen, sitting at a distance away, it's already getting a little bit small. But bear in mind that depending on the meeting you're in, there may be people joining on a mobile. So you always have to be conscious about that as well. So having some larger size text is something that's going to help with that. So that was the first thing, really, was, in fact, it was more kind of two things: the actual text itself, but then the sort of timing of the introduction of text. And this thing around sort of minimal text and the way that it's coming onto the screen, as I say, these are all kind of foundational things to something I'm going to talk about a little bit later. I also want to talk about this concept of using infographics, and it's also kind of linked to the idea of the timing of text. And I'm going to give you another example here, because at certain times, having some sort of diagram or graphic could be really helpful. And I'll just show you a quick example of something that I worked on previously, which was actually an algorithmic trading platform. And I'll show you the presentation, or one of them for that. Now, if I was to just put this immediately up on screen, it's kind of like a little flow diagram, an infographic. But putting something like that up on screen, again, could be potentially overwhelming. People are looking at that, and immediately their minds might be taken to trying to figure out exactly what's going on there, rather than focusing their attention on what I've got to say about it. And so infographics and charts, things like that, are fine. I would say that the same applies for Excel as well. I'll show you sort of a process now if this was an Excel chart as well. But the thing to do is make sure that, once again, information is only introduced in a sort of naturally flowing way, so that there's nothing on the screen that hasn't been explained. So if I just put this up, maybe this was a little bit of a shock to the system, trying to figure out what it all means. Whereas if I'd done something a bit more like this, and I'll just go through this sort of brief process of explaining this system, you'll have a much better idea of it, having gone through it step by step. So again, this is just purely an example, but we're developing an algorithmic trading platform. We've got a series of data providers. We've also then got our own internal databases where we're hosting the data. Then there is a series of computational engines that are doing a lot of work to figure out trade opportunities. And of course, there are various user interfaces that we need to interact with as well. Now, we have some sources for the raw data that we're going to be doing all of this analysis on, and we're taking that from the CBOE for our options data and stock data from a company called Refinitiv, and that is then being brought into our internal databases. We're then augmenting that price data with lots of other information, and we're generating some information related to the market type, so we understand, what's going on in the market at that time. We're also capturing some fundamental data about the companies and how they operate and things like that. And then we are trying to design strategies that are going to give us some good trading opportunities. So we've got a user interface that allows us to put our strategy inputs in, and then this is then pulling out the information from our database. And we've got this computational engine that's doing some back testing, figuring out historically how these strategies would have performed. We're then using some probability and forward testing to get an idea of how these may perform in the future, and that's giving us some results out. Now, from that, we can then say, how good this strategy we've developed is. And then that is going into our second database, which is a strategy database, which captures the backtest results. It gives the strategy a rating. It then also adds this into our overall strategy database. And then what we're doing then is we're basically monitoring all the market data coming in. We're comparing this with our strategy database to give some sort of live screening to establish, what are potentially good trading opportunities, and we're comparing this with an existing portfolio that we have of particular stocks, and this is giving an output to a user dashboard to basically say, okay, here on a daily basis, here are some trade suggestions, here is some position sizing, and here is the opportunity to take that decision as to whether it's something you want to trade in. So this isn't intended to be a trading session. However, that sort of shows you the difference between talking through something in a systematic way with stuff only coming on the screen as and when it's needed versus just immediately putting this slide up. And I think that a lot of people will tend to just have a single slide. Maybe they've got an Excel file. I mean, this would apply equally to, if you've got an Excel file with some complex financial data or whatever it happens to be, and you just immediately pop that up on the screen, people's minds will just be distracted by it. They'll be trying to figure it out. It's the human problem-solving nature. They will want to figure out what is on the screen before you have the opportunity to tell them. So even when I'm trying to talk about things related to Excel or any other data, spending the time to actually put in that sort of time reveal process is going to actually really make the message and the information that you've got to do a lot more impactful. I mean, even just thinking back to sort of yesterday, the audio routing, you'll have to tell me how well that went. But, that was why I specifically did it where, I introduced these sort of tabular data with, all of the inputs, the outputs, and added in things in that step-by-step way rather than just having the table without any animation. So that actually is a really good lead into this idea of animation and how and when to use it. I do think that having animated slides with, certain reveals of information can be really powerful. It adds a lot of, I think makes things more easy to understand if there is a certain amount of animation. However, that said, there are lots of animations that you can use in these particular software, whether it's Keynote or whatever it happens to be. And so if I just go back to our little example slide here with these bullet points, if I select the right scene, there we go. I had that information fly in from the left or right. Obviously, if you go into Keynote, and this isn't going to be a Keynote session at all specifically, but if I go into the animation section of Keynote, I can change these builds. So this is the type of animation. And if I just show some of the different types, you've got these different shimmering flares, all of this kind of stuff. I think that the tendency sometimes is to see all of these options and then try to use them all. I tend to try to keep to stuff that's fairly simple. In fact, what I tend to use is something, I'll just slow these down so that you can see them. It's usually just something simple, like a little dissolve or something like that, that just sort of slowly fades it in. Maybe moving it in from the outside, maybe something like this to just have it gently drop down onto the page almost. But yeah, a lot of these other ones, I think that they're a little bit gimmicky, really, and don't necessarily add to the sort of professionalism. Whereas there is something to be said for having some sort of emphasis on things coming in. And one of the examples that I used in the keynote course would be something like this. If you have got a sort of really powerful message that you want to deliver, then there is occasion, where you might want to use something a little bit more like this, so that when you click on the button, something like that is going to be impactful. And I think that if you use those things sparingly, where you have got some sort of powerful message to deliver, then yeah, that is there is an opportunity to use those effectively. One thing that I do just want to demonstrate in Keynote, if I come into this once more, is a little feature that they've got in Keynote, which is basically a transition for slides. Because I've talked there about the transitions of animating things in and out, and obviously there is different slide transitions. So if I choose a transition here, you've got all sorts of different ones. They're just disappearing off the screen at the top, which is so you can have all sorts of different things like that. I don't tend to use those transitions, but there is this one here, which is called Magic Move. And this one, I think, is specific to Keynote, actually. There may well be a similar PowerPoint feature. I'm not quite sure about that. But the thing about Magic Move is what that does is if I just quickly create a couple of new blank slides, or just create one to begin with, actually. And if I put a shape on there, so again, not supposed to be a Keynote course necessarily or workshop, but I'll just show you this. If let's say I'll change this to make it stand out a little bit more. If I add this shape over here, and then I change the transition type to the over here to the animation, change the transition type to this Magic Move, which is this one. Now, what that does is it says, okay, you've got a slide here and you've got this object in it. And if I was to duplicate that slide, so you see on the left-hand side, we've got two slides there. So if I was to just move this over to here and maybe even expand it a little bit, what the Magic Move transition does is it says it's going to move everything from where it is in this slide to where it is in the next one. And in fact, let's just do something else. Let's add a second shape on there. And I'll just put this over this side, and then I'm just going to copy it. It knows that it's the same shape, but now that one, I'm going to move it over here. So this is obviously totally random. This is going to come into use a little bit later. And I'll just notice Magic Move is called Morph in PowerPoint. Oh, that's great. I'm glad they've got it in there as well, because it's such a time saver when you're doing things like specifically infographics. You want things to move around on the screen. Let me finish demoing it before I get carried away. Whoops-a-daisy. I will go into this, the first of the two slides, click on the play, and then now if I just advance to the next slide, you'll see that what's happening. It's just basically moving from one thing to another. It's a great way, though, of, as I say, creating movement and transitions on your screen without having to go through and manually create all of this movement. You can animate single objects in PowerPoint and Keynote, where you're saying, okay, this is its start point. Now I want to add a transition where it's going to move to here and move over there. But there's a little bit more work involved in doing that. Whereas the ability to just go through with a series of slides and kind of just move things from one place to another and have it just automatically transition is a really great little sort of time saver. So yeah, I really like that feature, and it's going to come into use a little bit later when I start talking about immersive presentations. So as I say, this is just really a few best practices, thinking about the usage of your text and trying to keep it to a minimum, making sure that it's only introduced into your slides as and when you're talking in support of what you're saying, rather than being the kind of the main event, as it were. Thinking about infographics and how you can use those to effect, but making sure that if you are introducing any sort of complex subject matter, even more so than just, text bullets up on screen, specifically with complex subject matter like flow diagrams, infographics, Excel charts, or whatever it is, make sure that you're only ever introducing things up onto the screen as you are talking about them. And then again, with the animation, some tools there that we're going to be talking about in a moment, but also specifically, again, being very cautious about not to go overboard with using all of the fancy things. Sometimes less is a little bit more. So let's have a look at the chat just before I go in, because I haven't really said hello to everyone. So mine things are all over the place. Let me just make that a bit bigger. Hey, Terrace, it's great to see you here. Thank you very much for stopping by again. ES Audio Recording Studios, Burbank, California. Great to see you too. Welcome back. Thank you, and great to see you two here. Grandpa duties. Oh, well, that's the most important thing. So, Rich, hey, Rich, great to see you as well. And Terry, we got Dan in from Canada as well. My American morning. Good morning, Don from South Carolina checking in. We've got William Lowndes. Good morning. Thank you very much. I'm glad. I'm glad. Sometimes I bore myself. Russell, great to see you here as well. And we got Florence. Thank you. I'm glad you liked the presentation. We've got Dan in as well. And yeah, thanks for the pointing out that the magic move is called Morph in PowerPoint. I'm clicking on the wrong place. There we go. And we've got magic move is Morph in PowerPoint. Rich is saying, we've seen your behind the scenes. Where do you put your notes, bullet points for a presentation like this? I can show you that. So what I've got is, I've got Keynote is down here. I've got another area of my screen. So this large monitor, there's not much on it today because all I'm doing is potentially dipping into the Vivo meeting setting. I've got my Keynote down here. I've got my Ecamm output in my teleprompter. And just down here, I've actually got my Ecamm comments window is down here. So that's where I'm sort of clicking to put comments up on the screen. And then over here, I've also got my YouTube comments popped out as well as a window, because sometimes if ever there's an issue with comments not coming into Ecamm, or sometimes there's a bit of a delay, I keep my Ecamm comments down, my YouTube comments down there as well. And I do have a sort of series of bullet points that's basically kind of my run of things today. And incidentally, over here on this side is it's my Rodecaster, but this has basically got all of my AV stuff on it, basically. So that's got like Ecamm and things like that. So that's kind of my setup. Yeah, you can see that I've got the notes just down here below the teleprompter. And sorry, just to come back to that actually, where do you put your notes, bullet points for a presentation like this? So what I also do sometimes is, depending on what it is, I haven't got this going now, but with presentations, obviously you've got show notes, speaker notes as well. And so I do have that popped out as a second window. So maybe it's a good opportunity to show that. If I show you Keynote and I hit the little play button just over here, then in the top, I've got it floating in a window so it doesn't take over the whole screen. But just in case anyone wasn't aware, there is a button here to show the speaker notes in a separate window. So that then is popping out into a separate window, although it's not showing up in this right now because I'm sharing Keynote. But that pops out into a second window. If you are on PowerPoint, then there is an option in the ribbon under slideshow. Under slideshow, there is an option for to show as viewed by a person in a window rather than a regular slideshow. So if you don't want it to take over the full screen, that is how you can do that. I'm not sure if that's quite what you're asking, but just to give you the full answer there. So sometimes what I will have is I'll have the presentation running, going into Ecamm, but then I may well have the sort of speaker notes aspect of Keynote down on just below the teleprompter, so that then that'll show me what build is coming up next if I'm doing something that's a little bit more complex and I need to see what's coming up in advance. Hey, Jane, great to see you here again. I'd like to have Keynote on a second older computer and pull it into Ecamm like you do, but my Wavelink device doesn't seem to pick it up. So actually, what's probably going on there is, so with the Wavelink, presumably if the Wavelink is in your main computer, and the Wavelink is a dock that you can then power your other monitors and things like that, there is obviously an HDMI sockets in that. Just note that those are outputs, and so they will be for plugging in other monitors. If you've got your presentation on another computer and you want to bring it into your primary Mac, then what you'd need to do is take the HDMI out from the secondary Mac, but then put that into something like a cam link. So the cam link is the thing that takes an HDMI camera feed and converts it into a USB webcam. So whenever I do that, bring in a second computer in, I'm taking HDMI out from the secondary into a cam link, into the primary computer, and then in Ecamm I'm just adding a new camera overlay, but it's actually a screen, but it appears as a camera overlay. So I'm not sure if that might be the thing. If you with you mentioning the wavelink doesn't seem to pick it up, because it would be perfectly natural to think, well, you've got an HDMI out of one, I'll plug the other HDMI into the HDMI on the wavelink. But that's you've got two outputs going into each other there. So I don't know if that's quite what you're doing, but let me know if that does sound like it might have answered it. So Russell, do you know if you can bring your camera into PowerPoint? Yeah, you can. They've recently added it in. So that's a good segue, actually, because that's exactly what I'm going to be talking about next. I forget the name of the term in PowerPoint. Let me just quickly have a look at what it might be, but it's called live video mode in Keynote. Let me just try and do this. I'll tell you what I'll do. While that's loading up, what I'll do is I'll do the little demo of what it is in Keynote, and then I'll come to it. Perfect. I'm glad that sounds like that's solved it, Jane. Always feel free to reach out if it's not, or you couldn't get it to come in. That's a good point. Rich has just mentioned, Jane, actually. You could use an NDI program on your secondary computer so that it transmits over the network. I have done that one as well before, but personally, I prefer to have it wired, because I have, sometimes you get issues with network. So wired's always best, but that is definitely an option, though, that, as Rich says. NDI Scan Converter is a program that you would run on your secondary Mac. In that, you can select any window that you've got or any program that you've got open on your secondary Mac. So in your case, your presentation, and then it's basically then just transmitting that over your network. And once again, in Ecamm, you would add in a camera overlay on your primary computer, but for the source, you would just select the NDI Scan Converter off the secondary Mac. So that is a that is a wireless solution. Thanks for the thanks for the comments, Rich. I'm just noticing his second comment. That makes perfect sense to me. And Cameo. Okay, great. That's the name for it. So yes, this is what I'll talk about now, the live video feature, and it's called Cameo in PowerPoint. So let's get into that, because this is really, as I say, the sort of best practices that I mentioned earlier were really all leading into what I'm going to show you next, and it sort of culminates with the magic move thing. But the thing is that although I'm using Ecamm to do all of my camera switching and things like that, actually, when I've been doing these graphics, such as, let's just give you this one, and I'll just switch back to my main PowerPoint view. So these things here, where I've got these graphics that are coming on the screen like that, and then the other ones that sort of float in from the side. This is exactly what I'm talking about when I'm talking about immersive presentations. Rather than the slides being the content, the slides and the information is there in support of what I'm trying to talk about. And actually, the way that this is happening right now, if I flick over here, you can see that scene that was just in, that's actually all Keynote. And I've got Ecamm open on this side here, but at that particular point, it was literally just sharing this whole Keynote window. And the thing you'll notice is my video is actually in there. So my video is being captured by Keynote, and then I'm using it with Ecamm. But what that means is you could also just be sharing this directly from Keynote too. If you were doing a screen share and you had yourself in it, maybe a few potential frame rate issues there, just going directly as a screen share into your meeting platform. However, it is possible to do. So let's take a look at how to do that first of all, and then I'll talk about those animations and those transitions and exactly how I added those on. So yeah, the live video feature is what it's called in here, and thanks for the update. It's called Cameo in PowerPoint. So let's go over to this little presentation I've got here. And once again, I'll just go and do my screen share. And so what I'll do is I'll just add another blank slide. And so the first thing in here is, if I go into, so that you can see it, that might help. Up here where you've got the media, you then have this option in Keynote called Live Video, Cameo in PowerPoint. You're going to click on that, and as you can see, it's added in a camera. It's going to default to whatever the camera is, but the default camera is, which is my built-in webcam. But you can just go and change that. So in the where is it now? The format, the camera. And then I can just go to change that, or I can select this other one. So that is my regular camera. But you can see that what's happening is I've now got my live video feeding into Keynote. One thing to note about this is it doesn't necessarily like virtual cameras. In fact, there's a funny thing about almost all Apple products is whether it's FaceTime, Keynote, or QuickTime, they don't like the virtual cameras. Or rather, I think Apple sees it as a potential security issue for something or other, and so it doesn't like you using virtual cameras. So it's if you've got a cam link plugged in though, or a built-in USB or built-in webcam or a USB camera, then it should just show up. So here, obviously, I can just build myself into this presentation. But what's interesting about this, though, is you can also then combine this with other animations. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make this a little bit smaller so that isn't that typical? It's a little bit too small there. There we go. Let me do this. I'll just fit this to the screen. Zoom and fit. That should help. There we go. So I'm just going to make that the full screen. But when I talk about immersive presentations, I am talking about this idea of, bringing information on and off the screen and you still being kind of the center of it almost. You're the one that's there presenting. And so there's a couple of ways you could do that. First of all, we could just very simply, add a shape in, and the colors of this are going to be, it always seems that when I do these demos, the random colors that I pick are always terrible. And yet whenever I design something, I've put a little bit more thought into it. So we've got a few little text boxes there, and we'll see how this is going to turn out. I'm just going to give this a, let's say 200. That's probably a little bit big. Let me give that not 1,200. See what I mean about the problem with live demos. There we go. We'll just call this title. And this one down here, right, let's take that one there. And I'll just put these bullets on down here. So this might be, I can never talk and type. Something like this. I mean, it's essentially what I've been doing all of today, but I'm just going to do it very basically. I'm just going to select all of these different items, and at the very least, what we can do is click on the animation. I can add an effect, and let's just have these things. I need to do the text separately. I'll add an effect here for having this to just sort of move into the screen. In fact, that's the wrong one. I need to do the build in. The joys of live demos. Let's have that, do that again. Fly in, but I'm going to move in rather. Let's try that again. Third time lucky. Move in, and I'm going to have it move right to left. And then let's have these things just all come on automatically rather than me having to click through them just for the sake of this. And we'll have them just, let's say that they can dissolve in and out like that. I'll go to the build order. And here you can see the order that these things are going to happen into. Again, this is not going to be a keynote session, but basically you can choose whether things happen on a click, or maybe you want them to happen after something else. So maybe we might want the title to come in immediately after that one, but then these things all happen on their own. But then what we might want to do is just highlight all of these things and then have a build out where they're going to all basically move out off the screen. So let's have those, or let's just do something different for a change. And what I'm going to do is, if I go to all of these things here, I don't want to do it with that one. I'm just going to have those things all happen at the same time. So essentially what I've done there is I've got my live video coming in, and if I play this little presentation, it's going to look something like this. Obviously, I wouldn't have it on with me in the screen and me in the corner, but this is just to demo it. You can see that the information comes onto the screen. I've got my little bullet points, the things that I want to make. I'm advancing those as I'm clicking, as I'm going through, talking about these points. And then when I'm done with it, everything moves off the screen. So that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about an immersive presentation. It's this idea that you are still front and center, and then this information is being brought onto the screen alongside you in support of whatever it is you're talking about. We can go one step further, though, because I talked about Magic Move. So let's take a look at how you could do something that is maybe a little bit more immersive, because you'd notice there that what was happening is as I was talking, then you can see here, over here, I'm kind of getting squashed in that slide, or at least I'm getting squashed from one side over here. So you'd want to be able to kind of like move yourself over so that you're still centered on the screen. This is where the Magic Move tool comes in. So actually, when I do these things, what I do is I do sort of use the Magic Move. And what I'm going to do is just create a, first of all, I'm going to add a transition. I'm going to use the Magic Move transition in here. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this slide. And I'm going to just zoom out a little bit so you can maybe see what I'm going to do here. On the first slide, I'm going to delete all of the text like that. And I'm just going to move this thing from the side off out of view here. In fact, what I might do is actually just add another one. And let's make this one in the background. We'll make that white. Oops, change the color. So we've got a white one and we've got a blue one that are just kind of off screen. And what I want is I want those things to move onto the screen. So now I'm going to copy those. I'm going to go on to the second slide. And I'm going to put them exactly where I want them to be when the animation is complete. So I want them like that. What I'm also going to do now is move that text up onto the front. So I'm going to show the object list so that I can see all of my different things. And I want the text to be in front of that. What I could also do is, because what I'm doing is I'm automating the sort of transition, I might want the title to appear if I go into the animation of the title. And I'll go to this build order. Maybe actually now I want the title. I want that to animate on click. And then I want to just get rid of the animations on the rectangles, because they're now going to automatically happen because of the Magic Move. And maybe I want to just get rid of the little outro of them as well. And now, so we've got a starting position and we've got the ending position of those shapes there. But what I can also do is, because Magic Move applies to the cameras as well, I can just move my camera across so that I'm nicely centered on screen. And now if I copy the first slide and I'm just going to paste it afterwards, once again, the Magic Move is going to work its magic, because it knows where the items were in this slide. They're then going to move to here, and then they're going to move back out again. So this should all become a lot clearer if I actually just play the thing. You'll see what's going to happen. So I'm going to start with playing this slide, and I'm going to switch over to my full screen. And then when I press my advanced slide button, what's going to happen is, famous last words, the advanced slide should then, I tell you what I've done. I've clicked on the wrong one, haven't I? Hang on a second. Let me, this is typical, isn't it? Let me just add the transition here. We've got the Magic Move on there. Let me just preview that. Yeah, that is working. So if I click into here, try that again, shall we? And let me see. What am I doing wrong here? Oh, there we go. It's just very I actually got a little bit trigger happy there. I'll try that one more time. It's basically everything that I've been doing so far in all of these presentations, but somehow I managed to screw up the demo of that. Let me just try that one more time. I think there may be some other animation going on in the background. That might possibly be it. Let's try again. Let's try that one more time. There we go. So I think what it is I have actually got, I'll tell you what it is. I've still got the animation on this one. Let me just move this out. I've got an animation on the rectangle here. Let me get rid of those and get rid of the animation here. It's because I started off animating those rectangles and then I forgot to delete them. Should we try One last time. Here we go. Right, there we go. That's what's supposed to happen. So all of that, all of that fumbling was to show you that the camera moves over to the other side as well. And then when I now press the button, the title will come up and those different points. And then once I want those to move off screen, then that is all nicely moving out of the way. Well, that was hard work, wasn't it? But we got there in the end. If I actually show you now then how I've been creating these presentations that I've been doing over the past few days, it should all make a lot more sense because it's basically the exact same principles. And I'll start with this one over here. I'm just going to hide my object list so that you get to see a little bit more of it on the screen. And now if I flick over to this one, so what I've got is in the actual screen itself on the slide, this is me full screen, and I'm here at the very first slide of, in fact, this is of day 2 from yesterday. And then on the next slide after that, it's basically got my little name, but I've got that animating with a regular pop out so that when the live stream starts and I want my name to pop up, I'm basically just pressing the button to go to the next slide. This is automating a regular animation on there. But what you'll notice is off to the side of these slides, I've also got this element over here. I've also got these different elements that are just kind of sitting out of shot, off the stage, as it were. But then on the next slide, all I've done is I've just moved all of those things into place. So I've got the little logo there. I've got the logo at the bottom. I've got this thing that's just moved in from the side. So that's basically, I'm just using Magic Move to do that. So if I was to play this now, what you would see is when I play this, that little animation happens. Maybe if I take this full screen, it's what you've seen already, but now it should hopefully make a bit more sense. And then when I press to go to the next slide, all that's going to happen is Magic Move is going to move all of those objects. And that is exactly how all of that happened. It was just a Magic Move, and I just put those things exactly where I wanted it. Now I've got my little button to press to animate the text to come onto the screen. Like this. So as I say, this was what I went through yesterday. And then the next scene, I'm going to the next slide, I should say. And that is just moving the agenda up, putting in day 2. So again, Magic Move to do all of that. And then when I went through, this is what we talked about yesterday, in case you missed it. And now when I press the transition again, Magic Move is going to go to the next slide, and all of those things have moved off the screen. So just coming back over to the slide deck again, then you can see that yeah, that was those 2 transitions that we've just seen. Basically, it was just one slide with my name, another slide with the stuff on the screen, another slide with the second agenda section, and then we went to a next screen like this. Incidentally, this one as well is not a Magic Move, but it's just a transition. So if I just quickly play that, you'll see what that does. This was where we were talking about headphones. It was just a transition to move from one thing to another. And then when I click next, it just disappears off the screen. So really, there is only a few different things then that I'm actually using, a few different tools that I'm using to create all of those effects. And, you know, once you sort of know that, it's actually very easy to just build out a template which could be used for all of your corporate things, you know, whatever presentations you've got going on, and you would just literally have a regular sort of slide deck like this, but where your bullet points are either maybe the sort of titles that are going to pop up at the bottom, or these something like this that's going to come in from the side. Obviously, this is actually potentially, you know, for a regular meeting, this I would say would be too busy. It's slightly different than a live stream, I think. But yeah, the fact is that it's easy to just then duplicate these, and as long as you know you have the sort of before and after. So I've got one slide here that's got all of those elements on, and then another slide that has you know, all of them in place. You can just be duplicating those. And incidentally, it's exactly the same with this one for the audio routing. If we just sort of zoom out from here, you can see that I've got all of these elements that are sort of off stage, as it were. But if I go to the previous slide, they were just all, you know, out of view here. And so the sort of net effect of that is, if I were to play this one again, this is a slide just from yesterday. If I go to my full screen and then I go to the next slide, you'll see what's happening. We've got the title come up, so where I was talking about audio routing. Incidentally, having titles like that are down at the bottom, I think is a really good way as well to sort of just highlight particular points in a presentation that is not too intrusive. It's obviously not like having a slide deck where you might have a big title along the top. Just having something that's popping up on screen, I think, is quite an effective way of doing it. But now if I go to the next slide, you'll see the magic move in effect. So clicking to the next slide, I transitioned over and then all of this stuff came on screen. And again, this links right back round then to this idea of introducing complex subject matter. If I just put a full table up on screen at the beginning, that might well have been a little bit complex. But as I go through it, just sort of introducing things one thing at a time, I'm able to explain those as we go through. So this was obviously the presentation from yesterday. But yeah, if I'd just thrown that all up on the screen to begin with, then maybe people's minds and eyes would have been wondering, trying to figure out, what all of that meant. So in terms of the immersive presentation style, then this is what I'm talking about. It's where you are the primary focus and all of the other information is in support of that. And this, as I say, the whole of today was really to build up to this, to then lead into day 5, where we'll be talking about using live production software. There is one other tool, though, that I want to just mention, which is another great tool for communication. And it's something called Video Pencil, which is an iPad app. And what this allows you to do is it allows you, if I've got it activated, it allows you to draw things on the screen. And this can be useful for so many reasons. You may want to have a dedicated scene set up specifically. So you could have some sort of scene like this. So if I wanted to show you a diagram, I could be drawing in here and then flick back to my my main scene and have that disappear. Or flick back, to continue with those sort of drawings. And the thing about Video Pencil, the way it works is it's on the iPad, but what you can see is I'm actually seeing myself on the iPad as well. So I can see the output from Ecamm, in my case, Ecamm Live. And what it means is I can sort of draw anywhere and I can be really precise. So if I wanted to sort of highlight something in the back, let's say this microphone over here, then I can be really precise about it because I'm literally just writing exactly on the screen where I want the things to go. So I use it all the time for either just little notes if somebody's asking something in a coaching call or in a meeting or whatever, and I want to just quickly draw, like a little flow diagram or draw a little diagram or maybe even just jot down some notes on the screen. It's also useful, though, if you are in potentially a scene. So let's say that I go over to this one. Maybe as I'm talking about this, I just want to actually highlight something. So I want to talk about, we're going to talk about mic 1 and 2. I can show you, this is something interesting, that this kind of thing. It's really great for just sort of annotating. Another thing that it has on there is it does have a little laser pointer sort of built into it. When I say a laser pointer, a virtual laser pointer. So if I just take my pencil and just put it on the screen, I can just sort of highlight something with a dot on the screen like that without danger of blinding anybody. But yeah, it's just a great little illustrative tool that I think is really powerful in meetings. And as I say, I'm using it with Ecamm Live, but you can actually use it as a standalone app. Now, I've left a link to it in the description as well of this video, but it's called Video Pencil and it's an iPad app. And if you're just using a regular camera, you're not using any sort of live production software or anything like that, there is an app that sits on your computer that takes your existing camera. So let's say you're using your built-in FaceTime camera or whatever on your Mac or any webcam on your PC or whatever. It then sends that camera feed into Video Pencil, but then Video Pencil, obviously what you draw on here is then sending that feed back into your computer, and you can then select that camera, the Video Pencil virtual camera, as your camera in Vivo Meetings, for example, and it would mean you'd still be able to annotate and write on your screen, even if you were just using a regular camera. So yeah. So question, Maggie, hello, thank you for the question, great to see you. Is Video Pencil not the same as using the Apple Pencil on the iPad? So there is a way that you can, for example, get your writing into Ecamm. I'm not sure if you're talking about Ecamm specifically, but you can use you can like draw on a green screen effectively on your iPad, and then in Ecamm you can remove the green so that it's then drawing on that. I mean, if you're let me just step back a moment. If you're talking about drawing on your Keynote slides, then yeah, you can draw on Keynote slides or PowerPoint slides on your iPad as well. And if you're capturing that to go into your meeting, then those notes will come through. But in both of those cases, though, what you can't do is actually have your sort of camera feed like we've got right now, and for me to just be able to see exactly where it is I'm drawing on the screen. So that is the difference there. You know, if I wanted to just outline this, I can see exactly where it is that I'm drawing on the screen. So that's the thing that sort of sets Video Pencil apart from other methods to write on the screen, is the fact that you can clearly see your output. And so it's for me far better for sort of annotating during live video calls. That's the point about this. Obviously, if I'm just regularly using my iPad, then the Video Pencil, then the Apple Pencil works just fine. So just as well to clarify, I'm using an Apple Pencil, but the app that I've got on the iPad, the app itself is called Video Pencil. So yeah, not sure if I'm fully explaining that. So with that said, if there's any specific questions about presentations, as I say, this wasn't supposed to be, a complete presentation course or anything like that. It's just intended to sort of lay some foundations for stuff we're going to be talking about on Friday specifically. But if there are any questions, comments, or feedback, or anything that you've got that you'd like covered, explained, or maybe something else that you think is relevant, then do let me know in the chat. Video Pencil also has things like live titles. Yeah, I should demo that actually. So thanks for mentioning that. I personally, it's something that I turn off because I don't find it to be the best. However, what I will do is, if I'll turn it on, what live titles are is this. If I were to draw a line and then say something, hello, it's not going to work, obviously, because I'm demoing it. Let me try and turn it on and actually activate it. It just looks like I'm speaking to my iPad now, doesn't it? Let me try and turn this on again. Let me see. Oh, I'm actually getting a slight error now with this. Basically, what live titles do when they work, have I got the right one set on? Hello. Now I'm just going to end up talking to my iPad here. Basically, what live titles do when they work is you draw a line somewhere on the screen, you say something, and it puts the words up on the screen. The reason why I'm not a huge fan of that specifically, although it's a really nice little trick and a great little, I'm going to say gimmick. The reason why I'm not a huge fan of that is because the size of the text on screen is going to be dependent on the length of the word versus the length of the line. And so, yeah, it's maybe great for occasional things, but I prefer to just have any sort of text that I'm doing to be a little bit more in control of it. And I'm just trying to find where to turn that feature off. But it is, yeah, you're right though, Dan. It is a nice little thing. Cool. I'm glad that one is clear. Is this the cam link? It says it's for cameras. So I just so the cam link, I will just bring that up because we're kind of using it for a non-standard purpose. So if I just bring it up on here, the cam link is the thing that we normally use to connect our. Look at this. I've got to type and speak at the same time, and my mind just goes to pieces. They are something that looks like this, and it is a capture device. So the answer is yes, but I'll just bring it up anyway for the benefit of those watching, so that they can see what I'm talking about. And what I'll also do is I'll just copy the link in here. Like that. And this is what we're talking about. It is something called the cam link, and it looks like this. It's got an HDMI socket in one side, and then it's got a USB socket on the other end. The intended purpose is to take HDMI out from a camera to turn any camera into essentially a really fancy, much higher quality webcam. And in fact, that's what I've got with my Sony camera that I'm looking into here. I've got another one as my top-down camera, and those are going into cam links into the computer so that the computer just recognizes them as a web camera. But yes, you can do exactly the same thing with the HDMI out from your laptop or your second computer, and then you can put that into the cam link, plug that into your computer, and it will see it just as another monitor. You can get some sort of generic capture card. So the technical name for this, the cam link is the product name of the one that's made by a company called Elgato. So Elgato Cam Link. It's kind of really the market leader, I would say, in this particular type of capture card. There are some sort of more generic ones that you might see that are often considerably cheaper. You will get mixed results with those. I tried a couple of them and neither of them worked. So, but specifically though, if you're going to be plugging in a computer or a Mac specifically into them, then the cam links don't seem to have any issue with digital rights, the DRM, I forget the acronym now, but basically the thing that Apple's put in place to stop people from capturing stuff coming out of their Mac because they think that people might be able to sit there and copy their Apple TV stuff or streamed content or whatever. But I've got another one which is made by a company called Ava Media, who also make a lot of really great quality live streaming equipment. But their one specifically doesn't work with the Mac. The Mac just says, no, sorry, we're not sending the HDMI out to that. So, but the cam links, I can say with confidence they work because those are the ones that I use. So that is indeed the Elgato cam link. If there are no further comments or questions, then we'll call it a nice 60 minutes today. And tomorrow we're going to be going into more about the Vivo Meetings platform itself. So I know that there are folks that are completely new to Vivo. Tomorrow will be an opportunity to take a little bit more of a look at the platform itself. And then also for folks who are already using Vivo Meetings, then we'll be talking about some other features that maybe you aren't aware of. But I'll also be focusing on the reason I was so caught by Vivo when they reached out to me about doing this collaborative event, and it's because of their resolution, the ability to actually select the resolution, which is something that we have issues with as Ecamm users on some other platforms. Technically, anything's possible, but some things seem to make you jump through a lot more hoops than we would want to actually achieve what we're looking to achieve. So there's some great functionality that I just like about Vivo. And as I say, I'll be going into some of the things that I really love about the platform tomorrow. So with that said, thank you so much for stopping by. If you're watching on the replay, then of course, feel free to drop your comments or questions in the comments, I should say. And if you want to reach out to me, then you'll find my details down in the description as well. And if you are new to Vivo, new to the channel, then of course, don't forget to subscribe to this channel as well. Thanks, everyone. It's been a pleasure, and I'll see you all same time tomorrow.